In this hymn playing tip video, we are going to look at creative endings for congregational accompaniment. And even if you're creating an improv on a song and you're playing it as a special, ways to end that hymn. Check this out. For today's tip video, we're actually going to talk about ending a congregational hymn. So you're playing for the congregation singing, and we're finishing out this hymn. What can I play for the ending other than the basics? So for the most part, most of the time, pianists are familiar with this kind of style of ending. Or maybe even you're familiar with doing an ending similar to this. So those are two pretty basic endings, and sometimes we get stuck with what else can I do? So we are going to look at multiple endings for ending a hymn, and if you would like, there is a visual of this on our website. You can grab that. It's going to have all of these endings on here and even a few more that we haven't talked about, and you can grab that and it'll show you the endings that we've mentioned, how they incorporate in a hymn, and even giving you that final measure of the hymn with different endings. So the first one we're going to look at is a pretty basic ending, and it's going to be along the lines of using that root chord. So if we're in the key of G, my one chord, the chord I'll be ending the song on, that root chord is going to be the G major chord. Now, instead of me just playing that chord and then echoing it up in a chord, maybe inversions, I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to add the 2 to this chord. So the added 2 is A. And we want to keep that in mind because we're going to come back to that added 2 many times. So kind of keep that in mind there. So I'm going to add that 2 to it. And here's what I'm going to play. When I come to the end here, I'm going to land on that Jesus, that final chord. And I'm going to land on it in a full octave here. Notice I have an octave melody with the chord on the inside, and I'm gonna play. Now my left hand went up with it and maybe a chord, or my left hand, if your left hand isn't that comfortable, could just stay down there and maybe do a few octaves like that. That's completely fine, but I'm playing the root, so G, A, that's added second, B, and then D, and landing on the 1. It's a pretty nice ending. Now I can also take that up the octave if I'm higher up on the piano. And that time I took my left hand up there with it, doing chord inversions. And then you can add a little bit to it. So that's one way. I could do, come down and do a chord down here. That's completely fine as well, just to end it. So you can either stay up there and end it, or come down and end it. And that's the added second. Now we can also lengthen that if we want to go a little bit longer with it. I could do that for 2 octaves. So we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, 3, 4, or we could just stay up here for 4. So I've lengthened that for 2 octaves. I did 2 sets of that as opposed to just 1 set. So that is taking that G, that root chord, and adding that added second to it. Now, as I mentioned before, we're going to come back to that added second. We're going to see that quite often in some of these endings here. This next one is just a little bit of a different way to throw that added second in. So let's just kind of talk through just a single note here in that right hand. So here's my root, which is G. We're still in the key of G. My added second, my third, and my fifth of that chord. That is what we're going to play. So in essence, I'm going to do an octave, fill in the chord. I'm going to go to this second, and I'm going to keep that D as a common tone. Hit that twice. Go to the B, keep the D as the common tone. and then go to the 5. And notice it doesn't end, this one doesn't end on the root, it ends on the 5. So it gives just a little bit of a different sound. Well, listen to what that would sound like if we threw it in to this hymn. And I can come here and jump up. And I can leave it there or come down with the chord, whichever one you prefer. And notice how I played the chord and I leaped up the octave. And there I added a grace note just as a little tweak to it. So there's multiple tweaks we can make to this to slightly change it each time. Now, if I wanted to and I didn't want to leap up the octave, then I would need to finish my phrase up an octave higher than where I was. So is coming up, it's playing that low octave, and then it's going to play that A on the bottom, just like I'm playing the A here as the octave, with the added D and G. And I'm going to keep those two tones as common tones between each one. So it sounds like this. We hit the chord. We've talked about that added second. Okay, we're still in the key of G. We're going to talk about that chord again. We're going to do a little tweak on the one we previously did where we played. We're going to slightly change that. So we're going to hit our root chord, and then with an octave in my hand, I'm going to go up to the second, and again, I'm going to play that D as that common tone, and I'm going to do a triplet. Triplet, and I'm going to step up to the third, which is B as the octave, and fill in the chord. In my left hand, I'm going to, again, play that A, the added second, while I'm playing it in my right hand. I'm filling in the D and the G. Okay, so the reason why we're continuing to play that D and G is because it's the tones that make up that G or that root chord. So I'm playing the fifth and the root here. So it's the second, fifth, and root, and then here, second, fifth, second. So that would sound, okay, so that triplet, and you can again stay there, and each time we can stay there or we can come down with that big chord. So you're just listening. You have two options. You don't want to come down every time, but maybe you're going to rotate what you're going to do for that. Now, as you're picking and choosing these endings, you're really going to want to look for what ending works with the style of the hymn. So all of these are different, and they're going to work well with different styles. For instance, this last one that we just did where we have the triplet and then we come down, that one's going to work for a really nice majestic hymn. So maybe the hymn, if you're familiar with "Oh Worship the King," that's a really nice sound. And I can even make that triplet a little bit more dramatic by doing this. So either way works with that one. If this video has helped you, please like it, share it with others, and let us know. If you're looking for more resources as a church pianist, we have several available, including our hymn playing workbooks 1 and 2, which will help guide you in your hymn playing journey, as well as workbooks that deal with chord substitutions, key changes, and more. Check that out at newmerciesmusic.com.